I'll start with a little introduction. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Julian Rosser. I am the Senior Development Support Manager at Hub Cymru Africa. Welcome to this Meet the Funder session, which is aiming to support small international solidarity organisations in Wales to get funding. This session is funded, as is Hub Cymru Africa, by the Welsh Government. At the moment, we just have, DePaul is still trying to join, so we just have the four of us here. I would like very much this to be quite an interactive conversational session, which is as useful to you as it can be. So I'd particularly like to get to know, you all look like you're quite happy to be on screen. The session is being recorded, and we will intend to show it on YouTube, so it can be useful to people in the future. If you're happy to appear in that, then great. If you're not happy, then you can turn your camera off and show the recording. Oh, we've got somebody else trying to get in. Wonderful. So are you all broadly happy to carry on and appear and participate? Thank you, jolly good. It will be really good then to get a sense from you of who you are, what sort of experience you've got of grants fundraising. I'd like to find out a little bit about what jargon in particular perplexes or confounds you. Hello, we have Maggie Beecher connecting to audio. Yes, what sort of experience you've got, what jargon confounds you, and to get a sense, please, of what's brought you here today. Are there particular questions that you'd like to discuss and get some answers to? It would be great if you can certainly pop them into the chat. We will have the chat function going, but given there's a reasonably small group, then what we can do is just bring people in to converse if they're happy to. Please do raise your hand. You can raise your hand using the reactions box on Zoom, but again, given there's not very many of us, then please feel free to come off mute as long as you've got nothing too noisy going on in the background, and I will come to you one by one. Hello, Maggie, are you with us? Maggie, you're on mute. Are you? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. So, Dina, you won't be surprised to know that I'm going to pick on you first, to ask to tell us a little bit about the experience that you've got in fundraising and what jargon troubles you, and what it is that you'd like to cover over the next hour.
I'm Tina. I work for Friends of Monsi, which is based in Byd-eang, and we work in Zambia. I've just returned from a month in Zambia with a very long list of things that need funding, and feeling quite daunted about how I'm going to, so many people asking for help, so how I'm going to get all the money. So I need all the help I can get, and a bit of enthusiasm and firing up, because I have a long list of people to apply to, a long list of things needed, and just want to do the best I can.
Okay, so is there any jargon in particular that troubles you or confounds you, and is there anything that you'd like to cover while we're here today?
Nothing that comes to mind at the moment.
Okay, all right. So hello, Heath. Good of you to join us. and I welcome Maggie. So Maggie, could we come to you and ask who you're working for or working with? And is there any, is there any kind of jargon that particularly confounds you?
Well, there is jargon, yeah. So if ever I put an application in, it has to be looked at, and a few little things changed here and there, and a few little buzzwords put in. But generally, no. Well, my charity is Teacher Aid. It's been going a long, long time. We're having difficulty getting another trustee on board, which we really need. But that's not to do with this remit now. I mean, something you can help me with otherwise, maybe.
Yep.
But now, I mean, when applying for a grant, most funders want a project so they can take a picture and tell their donors, look what we've done. But really, this is a school that now has 650, started with 9 pupils, and is doing very well. But what our problem now is they can't afford university. And so this is what the problem is out there as well, is getting bursaries and ideas from people like yourselves and hopefully Colin Williams tomorrow. What can we do about it? Because
okay.
I'm supporting 2. Myself, I've promised to do it for 4 years, but a lot of my pension has gone there and everything. But
okay,
yeah,
all right.
So that's my picture.
So that's your picture. That's what you're up to at the moment.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Robert, could I come to you and ask what it is that you do, and is there anything you're looking for thoughts or support with?
Yes, I work with Punt in Rhondda and Taff in the livelihood section. We help or try to help vulnerable families in the Umbala region in eastern Uganda. Some years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, I was involved in applying for a number of grants unsuccessfully. And it was suggested at the time by Kath Malugu that my wording probably wasn't consistent with what the funding agencies wanted. Since that time, we've had other grants that other people have applied for, other than myself. That's run out. We find it very difficult to raise funds just locally doing the usual fundraising activities, and we're very keen to start applying for grants again. But I come to it with a clean slate because I don't know what the jargon is until I see it.
Yes,
that makes sense.
Okay, all right. Yes, that makes sense.
You.
So that's very helpful. Can we come to Catherine and get a bit of background and what you get up to and what sort of jargon you're clashing with? Catherine, you're on mute.
There we go. Sorry about that. That's just me and my IT.
Yeah, brilliant. You're there now.
Hi, I'm a retired physiotherapist, but I've been working out with a project in Joro in Kenya. I have with me a chair of another of a charity called the Potter's House. We've been successful actually in grant applications before, but we're going for another grant application to keep the project running, but to actually expand it in a direction that's great. We make special seating and standing frames for children with disabilities out of paper and cardboard. But we've noticed as a therapist, there aren't the same kind of number of therapists, and it's very rural where we are. So we're wanting to train community health workers to do that bit of explanation to the families and what else they can do once they've got them in the seats and standing frames to help in their well-being, really. So we're going for a grant again. I suppose I came to this just to make sure our grant proposal is as strong as possible, and I suppose the jargon that's come up is the evidence-based stuff, making sure we've got enough evidence-based things in our application.
Yep.
That's our remit. It's going really well at the moment, but but we're really scared. It's the same as others, that kind of we have done some fundraising, and we have we've been looking at other ways to fund. So we've got some money there, but not the whole lot that we need. So that's why we're going for the Wales Africa grant again this year.
Right. Okay. All right. That's good to know. So who do we have? We have Jane. Jane, could I come to you and ask the same questions?
Hello, I'm sorry if it's noisy. I'm in a cafe, so I'll also turn my camera off later off to finish my lunch. I'm a trustee with Engineers for Overseas Development. We do mostly construction projects, mostly in Uganda, things like grain stores for women's cooperatives. We've done a clinic, sort of work in partnership with different community groups. They say what they need, and then engineers over here fundraise and design. So we made various different applications. I think safeguarding has come up on a particular application, and I don't know if this was one of the Welsh ones specifically or something else, anti-racism, and what our position is on that. I mean, we're a very small charity, so we don't have the policies we need. We don't have a whole folder full of everything, and we don't want to overburden ourselves with things we don't, that aren't helping us get done what we're trying to get done. So sort of how to think about those and sort of diversity. And I think a lot of the things that I see coming up, and I've been to various webinars, we do sort of just is built into how we're working, partnership and local and stuff, but we don't really have it written down. So how to best sort of get over that hurdle.
Okay. Yep. Right. Okay. Fair enough. And Diana, could I come to you and ask what you're up to and what you're looking for some thoughts on?
So I'm Diana. I'm from Cardiff University School of Healthcare Sciences. So I'm a nurse educator, and we've been working with Kamuzu University in Malawi to look at, to train their nurses with sickle cell and thalassemia into their nursing curriculum. It wasn't there before, so we've embedded that into their programme with nurse educators there. So I've only applied for one grant, a Wales Africa grant, and I had feedback this morning. It scored really highly across most of the areas, and it was just unfortunate apparently that they only awarded 6. So I'm quite happy with the content. They've said to cut and paste most of it. Where I needed to improve on was just to link to the targets more. And one section just needed a bit more explanation. So I'm just here really to, I'd still like to go in August, but I know the current round will be too late for a visit in August. So I'm thinking forward to next year for a 2-centred visit, Lilongwe and Blantyre. So I'm just here to learn from others really. And just as Catherine mentioned, just to make a next or a future grant application stronger, really, just to get more understanding and context from others and, just learn, really.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds like...
We're working with the Fishermen's Charity in West Wales to do some rural education as well. So it links in with some environmental tree planting and rural health education as well. So, and it's a joint application with clinicians. So it's just getting the jargon. It's not too academic. It needs to be both clinical and academic is my, where I need to get balance as well.
Right. Okay. That's very helpful. So what I think is probably the best approach is if I start, let's just check. Oh, there is somebody in the waiting room. See if we can get Amelia in. But what I can do is particularly to give you all, I think it would be helpful to get a little bit of a sense of some of the things that are on the Hub Cymru Africa site, because we do have various bits of guidance and glossaries and some useful tools and things that you can look at there. The other thing that I would say is that we do offer one-to-one support. And so if you come to us at Hub Cymru Africa in time, because obviously these, there are deadlines on these grant applications, and we do get a little bit busy sometimes in the run-up to them, but we do offer one-to-one advice, and we will give you feedback on a draft grant application that you've written. We can give you feedback on the project plan that came before that grant application hopefully happened, and we can give you broader advice on how to build your partnership, how to develop the work that you're doing together. And I think something that we often see is that people will come to us for advice when they've got a grant application that there's a deadline in a couple of weeks, and they really need to get the money. And you probably all are in that situation, where you've got project work that needs to be done. You know what the project is. You've been able to put it into a form, and then somebody comes at you and asks a question like, what is your model of change, or what have you done, which are all things that they would have wanted you to have done a year ago or 18 months ago. And so I think one thing to reflect on if you're running a long-term partnership, sometimes when you get flummoxed by a question that is asked by a grant funder a couple of weeks before the deadline, it can often be a sign to you to take a step back, reflect on the work that you're doing, reflect on the partnership that you have, and consider, do we actually need to spend more time as a partnership together working out what is our theory of change or model of change, or any of those sort of terms? And I can give you a little bit more information on how that works. But I think often, you do need to take a little bit of a step back and think not just about the project that you're trying to raise money for, but about the partnership overall. And that one thing to say is that funders are different. It's quite difficult in some ways to give a general thoughts about what grant funders like and don't like, because they range from quite large, complex organizations who are experts in international development and will expect you to be following a particular model, to small groups of very non-expert people who happen to have been put on a board of some organization that had a load of money, possibly from somebody who got it through slavery a few hundred years ago. But there are a lot of those grants and foundations who've got a lot of cash, are happy to send out bags of it in chunks of £2,000 to £20,000, which can be incredibly useful. And the sorts of questions that they will be asking and the sorts of expectations that they have will be quite different from WCVA, which is aiming to operate good practice. And there is a broadly accepted sense of what good practice is. And before you go doing your grant application, then ideally you should have been through these steps, which are around developing a genuine partnership with an organization in sub-Saharan Africa, which is obviously where we focused work on, and a partnership meaning that both organizations go into this being seen as having equal value in the way that things operate, and that the work that a partnership does is guided completely by a participative work with the people in the community that you are trying to support. And this is to avoid the old classic mistakes of international development of white people charging into Africa and countries and other continents with stupid ideas which they implement badly and do more harm in the communities that they were trying to help. And so, yes, these organizations will expect you to have a partnership, to have developed your work through a participative process, which involves everybody within that community that you're trying to support, including the people who are less advantaged and have less privilege within that community and are less likely to come along and speak out at a large community meeting, and the people who do not have power as decision makers, as elders, as leaders within that community, and that you will have then developed that project in consultation with those people, led by those people, and that the project itself really should be led by people in Africa. And then furthermore, they would want to see that you've got a clear plan for judging whether or not that project was a success or not. And that's where you start to come into these issues of MEL or meal. And I have worked with organizations where you put in the budget line for MEL and they say, who is MEL? And MEL is monitoring, evaluation and learning. More often in our community expressed as monitoring, evaluation, accountability and learning. And these are the processes by which you judge whether or not your project has succeeded. And so monitoring involves collating, gathering evidence, information, that can be qualitative or quantitative. So it can be numbers of things that you've achieved, numbers of workshops conducted, numbers of people who've passed a course or have secured a sustainable livelihood. It could be stories about people in the communities, finding out how things have changed since you've been doing that work. Evaluation is the process by which you then work to assess whether or not all the information that you've got from your monitoring, what does it all mean? Have you met your targets? Have you made a real difference? And sometimes even if you have met your targets, you may find that you haven't made a real difference. So evaluation is also a process that you should be doing with your partners. It shouldn't be something that is done by an organisation sat in Wales, looking at the information and making a judgment. You should be doing everything you can to ensure that your partners are involved in that work. And again, ideally, not just the senior leadership. If you're working with an organisation, for example, it's not just about the leaders of the organisation sitting there and making a judgment. Ideally, the people who you've been working with should also be involved in that process, and that can be difficult. It can be difficult to involve rural farmers in Tanzania in assessing the value and the overall outcomes of a project. But the more you try, the more you'll find that you can get some meaningful, useful information, which helps you to evaluate if your project has been successful, and also gives you pointers to how to do a better thing in the future. So that sets us up talking about the working with the people that community you're trying to help. Sets us up for the A in meal, which is about accountability, which is also ensuring then that you are not just accountable to your funders, that you are accountable to the people that you're working with and the communities that you're trying to support. And so I would say that involving those communities in the evaluation and the assessment that you do of your work is really crucial to that. But also, once you've done your evaluation, making clear that that is published, that information about that is circulated clearly, not just to, again, your funders, your supporters, your volunteers and your board, but to the communities that you're trying to work with as well. And then learning is the final L in meal, and that's taking that whole process, establishing how well things went, what could have gone better, and learning from it, feeding it into your next project design or your next program design or your next funding application. And also, I would say, really importantly, is helping others to learn as well. And what we try to do in Hub Cymru Africa, and I think we still don't do well enough, probably, is to bring people who've got experience of running these projects, and ensure that the lessons that they learn are then understood by the rest of the community in Wales, and people who are doing these things. So yes, excuse me, I'm just trying to give a sense there of sometimes that the jargon that you come up against and the problems that you come up against are is essentially because your funder is trying to lead you in a particular direction, and your funder is saying, we think these are the important aspects of this sort of project, and sometimes if you have trouble answering those questions, then it means that you've not got a fundraising problem, you've got a project design problem. And it's important just to step back and think about that, and see what it means for you and what it means for planning your work. And I appreciate that in the real world, when you have a deadline and you need to get the money, that actually the tendency is to blag it as best you can when you're writing a grant application. And I did manage the Wales Africa grants for Hub Cymru Africa a few years ago when we did allocate the grants, and I read an awful lot of grant applications, and the funder can usually tell when you're blagging it. Oh, hello, Jane. Jane, do come in and ask.
Thanks. Yeah, it's just a question about when we talk about partner organisations. I mean, the people we work with, some of them are kind of our groups that they've set up, like a women's cooperative, and they've sort of got themselves a chair and a secretary. Sometimes it's another charity that we're doing the work for. Sometimes it's sort of people that we know who are in the community, and so there is a community group, but there's not necessarily sort of like a formally named organisation.
Yep.
So, I mean, I recognise lots of what you're talking about as things we do. We just don't label it with with those words. So yeah, I suppose is that okay? How do we just describe what it is?
I think you probably should describe what it is, and be honest about what it is and what you're doing. I think that certainly for, say, the Wales Africa grants, then the expectation is, and the built-in preconceptions there are that this is the best way to do things, and it is to have a partner organization in Africa that is very much in the lead in terms of talking about what is needed, supporting a needs assessment, and coming up with a plan for what to do.
I suppose it's how formal does this partner need to be? Do they need to be, I don't know, registered with all sorts of numbers, or actually is it okay that they're the local group who live in the village?
I think it's completely okay that they're the local group who live in the village. I mean, again, it would depend on the funder. There are some funders who would want you to have a partnership with a more properly constituted or regulated organisation that was registered as an organisation or a charity in country. Generally, the Wales Africa grants are a little more liberal, and if if the group is constituted, at least has a written down constitution as to who's involved and what they do, then you should be all right. But again, I mean, I think it's worth exploring as an organisation how that works for you, and where do you get the best results. Amelia, you have your hand up. Hello, Amelia. And Amelia, I think you've joined since we did introductions. So Amelia, do you have any thoughts? No? Okay, maybe not. So Right. I think what I can do probably is think about some of these. Does anybody have any questions? Any other questions that come off the back of that short monologue about project design and program design? No. No. Okay. Jolly good. Well, what I can do is share with you, I think, which would be useful if I can go to if I can share screen, then what I will do, hopefully, let's have a look, is go to the Hub Cymru Africa website. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see the glossary.
You see the glossary. Wonderful. Okay, jolly good. So I've got a few links which I can share with you, particularly dealing with some of these things that people have talked about. But I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of these areas on the Hub Cymru Africa website as well, because it's maybe not best at showing off some of the resources that are available. Oh, Heath, you've got your hand up now.
I just wanted to say, Amelia's written in the chat that she might need you to unmute her manually, which I think you can do from the participants panel.
Oh, thanks, Heath. Should I ask? Do I need to? Do you say I need to unmute Amelia manually?
Yeah, if you like right click on her name in the participants panel, or let me see.
I can ask her to unmute.
She wrote in the chat, please can I be unmuted?
Yeah, okay. Okay, Amelia, I think you'll have to unmute yourself, I'm afraid. I can only ask you to unmute. I can't make you unmute. Well, we can try. Okay. So I just wanted to show you this bit of the Hub Cymru Africa website. So this is the homepage. If you go to the Get Support section over here and scroll down, first of all, somebody mentioned safeguarding and issues around safeguarding. That was Jane. We do have a whole section on safeguarding, and that will give you advice on safeguarding. It'll give you some explanation as to what it is, give you some sample policies and resources, and give you some background information about how different organizations handle safeguarding. Also, Hub Cymru Africa does run safeguarding surgeries. In particular, we run regular workshops on safeguarding, and if you'd like some one-to-one advice, that we can do that. We can talk to you about what it is that your organization does, where are the particular safeguarding risks, and talk to you about how you can develop your policy and, most importantly, implement your policy. So there's a section on safeguarding. Another important area to be aware of is this section on funding, which you should also be aware of, because this information is updated regularly with information about funders, gives you information about the grants that they're providing, more information about the organizations themselves, and it is well worth having a regular look through if you're looking for money, because the Wales Africa funding is not all that is out there. There are plenty of other people with money available. But then to carry on a little bit through the resources section of the website, which also is a little bit hidden away, but particularly in here you'll find some really interesting and useful information on fundraising, including some documents I will share links directly on, but that gives you some tips on strategy, things to think about, overview of trust funding, and talks a little bit about how to communicate some of the things that you're doing. as well as fundraising, which is important for some of the things that you're thinking of, particularly around evaluation and project planning. Then there is a section also on project planning here, which also, I'll send you some links to some of these documents directly, but gives you a glossary of terms in monitoring, evaluation, accountability and learning, and also gives you information on understanding activities, outcomes and goals. And that's a key area then that a lot of funders will be looking to, because they'll be looking to understand what your project is, what sort of what you need to put into it, what you're going to get out of it. So I think the other area, let's have a look, particularly was around inclusion, and they're saying also that some funders are demanding policies on inclusion. So there's resources here also on inclusion, looking at inclusive development, disability inclusive development. So there's some interesting stuff there, which I hope will be helpful. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, if I can. New share, how about we stop sharing? Oh dear, my head is clearly not. Ed, where do I stop sharing?
Down at the,
you could say share screen in green, and then you switch that off. Or maybe it's in red to switch it off.
Thank you. There it is. Wonderful. Great. Okay, so sorry, we've got some stuff from Amelia. The host isn't allowing participants to unmute themselves. Just asking if the meeting is recorded. Yes, Amelia, the meeting is being recorded. She is in Lesotho. Who to contact if we want some one-to-one support? Yes. Let me have a look. Brilliant. Thank you, Heath, giving helpful information there on that. Right, so what I can do is, let's see if I can share some of these more useful bits of information. Okay, so there's a few things on things like theories of change, monitoring, evaluation and learning. But can we come back actually to, I think particularly Catherine and maybe Jane, on some of the specifics that you were asking around, and see if you have heard anything useful, if you've got any more questions, particularly around things like being able to evidence the change that you're making.
Hi there. I think for us, we were just wondering about evidence. We've done parent feedback forms on all the parents that have had a device for their child. So we've got that. But having said that, we haven't done anything pre them having the devices, if you see what I mean. So I know they kind of said it's quite useful to have something before and then after. And I wondered, is that important? Do we need to be collecting some data at the beginning? And we know these children, we do a basic referral form at the beginning. So the families have said what the problems are. Is that good enough to do the referral form and then the feedback form at the end?
What is the intervention that you're making specifically?
We're making seats and standing frames for children that are very disabled, so they're not able to sit up or stand up themselves without these devices. So up until until they get these pieces of equipment, they're laid on the floor or they're laid on a mattress, and that's their kind of quality of life. So they make a huge difference. Obviously, in this country, it's a very different system. It's a kind of adjunct equipment, an adjunct to therapy. So you know, that it's kind of complicated, but we're moving forward with our project in helping with that as well. I'm a therapist, but what it's how much how much you're able to do. We definitely get the parent feedback, and it does make a difference. We know it makes a difference. We've had a research project done and in the past, and is in a is in a journal, Disability and Rehabilitation. So we've got that evidence, but for actually this project itself, how we create it, how we get it into the grant, so they, so it's strong, really.
Yep. Oh, crikey. Well, it sounds to me like you would get some decent, robust evidence through parent feedback. The kind of thing that you're doing should be, I think you could trust their recollection of how things used to be and how things are, and you can ask people about, what is the change that has happened here. It might be argued that you might get something a bit more robust if you did something a little bit more in detail at the beginning, but it doesn't seem to me like that's not valid as a measurement, and it's not, it seems to me like it's valid and effective. You could probably argue that it might be better, and if you're planning to be doing this for a number of years or working with lots of different groups, then I think it would be worth you just sitting back and again asking yourselves, how much information have we got? How much information have we got? Do we think that's enough? Do we think there is more that we could do which would give us something more useful? And it may even be that you try it and find that you don't get anything more useful than you've already got. But I think, again, as part of that evaluation process, then it's not just about asking yourselves, but it's also then, I suppose, about going to the people that you're working with and saying, this is what we've found. What do you think of this? What does it tell you?
Okay, thank you.
Can I just answer? Sorry, Dina has wrote in the column about a cardboard seat and frame. I just replied to that. Thank you, Dina. We do have some samples in this country of what we're doing, but I'd love to email you if that's all right. Just find out your experience about that, because that's quite intriguing as well, and just like to find out more what you've done yourself.
Yes, do email me.
Thank you very much.
That sounds very helpful. So as you will have seen, I have popped in to the chat box just a number of different things. I've got links to some of the information. A lot of it's on the Hub Cymru Africa website. Some of it is in other places. There is also I did think that theory of change would probably be one thing that came up, because it does seem to be something that is being demanded more and more. And I think the other thing to bear in mind with grants fundraising is that, like everybody else, grant giving organisations are subject to fashions and trends and latest conceptions of what best practice is. And so theory of change is being asked more and more about. I have, hopefully, let me have a look. I have sent you a link to this toolkit. If I can do some more screen sharing and not get it horribly wrong, then wonderful. Okay, can you see that? So I've sent a link to this in the chat box, but this is just and there's also a link to a video which just talks you through it in about 4 minutes, which is also very, very nice and very useful. Theories of change can be very, very complicated, but actually in essence they are quite simple. And you generally start at the right hand side, and you will ask the question, what is the long-term change that you would see as your goal? Why is it that you're doing this work? Why do you have this organization? Why are you supporting this organization? And so over here you would have something that is quite large and quite juicy as a thing that you would want to see, quite aspirational. that you're looking for, the community to not be suffering from hunger, or you would be looking for levels of maternal mortality to be reduced by 50% within an area, for example. And then you would go straight back to the left-hand side, and you would go in this column, and you'd say, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? And that doesn't have to be just one thing. If you were saying that your long-term change was around a community having access to decent work, then you could say, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? What are the problems that are leading that community to lack decent work? And is that around the economic infrastructure within an area? Is it around education and skills that are happening within an area? Is it because landslides and deforestation have left large areas unusable? What are the different things that are happening along this column here, which is causing the overall problem of low employment and poor livelihoods within an area? And then within that, you are having worked out where you want to go. Don't see. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Heath. Great. My terrible Zoom management means now usefully putting links in, as I think I just sent them to him. So then you would ask here, this says, who is your key audience? I don't really like the term audience, but again, I think this is affected by a move away from using terms like beneficiaries. So key audience will be who are you working with? Who are you trying to support? Who are you trying to help within this community? What is your entry point to reaching them? What steps do you need to take to bring about change? And then looking at what are the measurable effects of your work? What are the wider benefits of that? And so the theory of change is just to try and put the information that you've got into this model, see if it all makes sense. And the other key thing that you would do while writing it at each of these stages is to write in your key assumptions, and to understand that actually when you're designing a project, and I'm going to stop sharing now, that when you're designing a project, some things may make complete sense to you, they might make complete sense to the community that you're working with, but that actually it's quite easy to make some incorrect assumptions in what you're doing. And just because you assume that this intervention will lead to a better livelihood for people, it may be that you do something terribly wrong, and that your amazing project supporting to grow vegetables shuts down all of the vegetables and throws various people into poverty. So there's, at every stage you say, what are the assumptions that we're making here? Oh, we assume that if we organize these classes for men with disabilities in the village, that they will be interested and they will come. And you may find that doesn't happen. So that, Dina, is theory of change in a couple of minutes.
Do you think it's the same as a log frame?
I think it's slightly different from a log frame. I think a log frame would tend to have a little bit more staged in terms of these are the resources that are going in, these are the very specific things that we're doing at all of these stages. But they are, they're pretty similar in conception, aren't they? Of like, they've got the what are you trying to achieve? What are you doing? How do you know that it's working? So you've got a lot of the same sorts of things there. So link to the flow chart link. Is that the one that we were just looking at, Diana? Let me see.
Clicked on all the links, but it doesn't take me to that. I think the glossary and things are really helpful, but the flow chart would be good to have as well.
So Heath has popped it in there as Theory of Change Toolkit is what it's called.
Maybe I missed it.
So that should be there.
Got it. Thanks.
Hello, Amelia.
Hi, do you hear me now?
Yes, we do. Hello.
Oh yeah, I didn't have a chance to create. I've been battling with network. It's actually very bad. I was actually also apologizing that I've missed a lot of things within the communication right now. There's a lot of breakdown that is happening. So yeah, I'm missing a lot. I'm sad, I'm frustrated here, but I'm happy that this is recorded, so I'll be able to follow everything on my own.
It is. It is recorded, and I will circulate the links to everybody who's come along as well, just so to make sure that you've all got all of them.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Lovely. Thanks for that, Heath. So, are there any other questions that come from that, or any other things? Just trying to think of things that we haven't managed to cover. Is there anything missing?
I'm not sure if this is a question for you. Somebody else said something similar, which was about I think there were only 6 grants made in the last round. So although our feedback seems to be, we seem to be a bit confused about what our feedback has been, and I partly think it's just that there were so many applications, there wasn't enough money, so not to get too worried about the fact that we didn't get it. Would that be a reasonable assumption?
It sounds it. I mean, if they didn't give you, I mean, you usually, if they feel that there's something wrong with the application, then they will give you some feedback. And if they haven't, then it's worth going back and just asking if you could have some feedback.
This morning, it was just the sheer volume of applications, really.
Yeah, I think
they can't fund everything, and they've got to ensure equity amongst they look back in regards to previous submissions and where they've already put money to, so they've got to ensure that it's different countries as well as different institutions, and as well as the scoring, obviously.
Yeah, so I would say don't be disheartened, and there are plenty of organizations who have put in very similar application forms in a very near round and have had funding afterwards. But as I say, it's definitely worth asking them for feedback in case there is anything that they've got to say. And please do get in touch with us directly. Then we're happy to review applications and give some feedback. And I mean, what can I say? We're not WCVA. We don't know exactly what's going on, in their minds or in the panel's minds. But we can give some thoughts on what we think is best practice in terms of design of the project as well as presentation of the application itself.
Thank you.
And so I know Heath has popped the email there, but it is, what is it, advice@hubcymruafrica.org.uk, and you can have a chat with one of us directly. So I've got to launch a poll. I think I've got to launch a poll. We're a few minutes before the end. We will be able to take a couple more questions, I think, if anybody has any before we finish. But hopefully, has everybody seen our poll? Has it popped up? Because we need to evaluate our work as well as monitor it, and get a sense of, if things are working, how our events are doing. So if you could do that, that would be brilliant. But if you do have any further questions, then do please formulate them come up with voice them now.
My question is, and I could probably get the answer from the website. So if somebody's got a better specific question, please ask it.
Go on, ask away.
Yeah, well, Hub Cymru Africa, where do you sit? I've sort of been connected to things, and I think I've even been to an event, but I don't quite understand, where it sits and
what it is,
and
who we are. Oh, crikey! So Hub Cymru Africa is it's a partnership between 4 different organisations. So Welsh Centre for International Affairs, Fair Trade Wales, Wales Africa Health Links Network, and the Sub-Sahara Advisory Panel. So we are, we're a partnership rather than an organisation. We're hosted by Welsh Centre for International Affairs. We've got an office in the Temple of Peace in Cardiff, and we are largely funded by Welsh Government. We've also received funding from the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, and from other funding organisations like Waterloo Foundation, for example. We exist really to support the Wales Africa community. So that's Wales Africa linking organisations, as well as health links, fair trade organisations, and African diaspora-led organisations working in Wales. So yes, that's kind of who we are. Usually we support those organisations through training, through events, through networking opportunities, providing information. We do communications about what people in the sector are up to, and we really aim to bring people together in the hope that people will share information and do better work.
Thank you.
No problem. Does anybody else have any questions? It looks like, oh, go on.
Just like to say thank you. I feel a bit more inspired that I've got to get to the goal, and then what's the problem? It's good to think it through another way round.
Okay.
So thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, everybody. I hope it was useful. Yeah. Thank you, Heath. Go on, Diana. Is that?
Sorry, just a quick question. Do Hub Cymru offer any funding outside of the Wales Africa grant scheme, or for a flight price, or something like that, something small? Just out of interest.
No, not as a matter of course. We have sometimes been able to get our hands on money for grant schemes which we have dispersed, and we've done that for Welsh Government and for Waterloo Foundation, but it's not a regular thing. But we will see. Maybe we will be able to get some again. But the main Wales Africa funding for organisations is provided through WCVA, and it's Welsh Government funded, but WCVA manage the grants pot and they allocate the grants and do all of that stuff.
Okay, thanks.
But we do have a newsletter, and so if you're not getting that, then it probably would be a good idea to do that. And you can sign up for that on our website. And so we give regular information about events, training sessions, about funding opportunities, and anything else that's going on. So please do stay in touch. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's time to finish. Thank you all very much.